We are now learning about the existence of a literal, not proverbial, pandemic playbook that Donald Trump and the White House had in their possession. They'd had it for years, and they just ignored it as they continued to insist coronavirus is no big deal and everything's just fine. This is a color coded, 69-page long playbook. It's a manual for fighting pandemics. If they simply followed it, they didn't have to come up with anything new. They didn't have to go. The information was all right there. If they simply followed the 69-page document that they had all along, that they were briefed on in 2017 by the outgoing Obama administration, think about how much better off we would all be right now. Think about how many fewer deaths we would be on target to have. The playbook dates to 2016, and the playbook was created because in 2014-15, we had Ebola. Lessons were learned, so a playbook was put together. This is called iteration. It's called learning. The playbook was made in 2016. It was turned over to the Trump administration in 2017. They were briefed on the playbook in 2017. Then, of course, Donald Trump disbanded the pandemic response team. We know where we are today as a result of that. And as you all probably realize by now, pandemics are an issue of national security. This is a national security document. It's the National Security Council's pandemic playbook, 69 pages, and it was just ignored, simply ignored like it doesn't exist. And this is another interesting thing. On Monday, I gave a list of what should Trump have done and when should he have done it. Now, at the time, I wasn't aware of this playbook, but many of the things I mentioned, including the timelines, are literally in this playbook right at the start. So one of the things I said was months ago, that's when the government needs to start obtaining, securing, and distributing personal protective equipment, including masks and gloves, and looking at getting the ventilators to where they need to be. The playbook says one of the things you do at the first sign of the pandemic is you ask, is there sufficient PPE, personal protective equipment, for healthcare workers who are providing medical care? If the answer is no, should the strategic national stockpile be released to states? Trump started talking about this 8 days ago, 9 days ago, maybe. The playbook says, just like I said on Monday, that should have been done in January at the absolute latest. Trump simply didn't do it. It was in the playbook. It was in the document that they were given. The funding stuff, the checks and the stimulus. I said on Monday, you need to start negotiating and planning the bailout early so that the money can actually get to people when they need it. We are now almost in April. With luck, people will get their $1,200 checks in 3 weeks. And that's only half, because remember, you'll get a direct deposit in roughly 3 weeks, assuming it passes the House later today. If you filed taxes in 2018 or 2019, filed your 2018 or 2019 taxes, and received a refund via direct deposit. That's how you'll get your check, your $1,200 in 3 weeks. The other half is unlikely to get their $1,200 for an additional 3 to 5 weeks beyond that. The playbook says, plan in advance with legislators to have the money ready. They didn't do it. It's actually shocking that the advice is so obvious that even I, who know nothing about this stuff, I was able to put together a list of stuff that should have been done that we now know mirrors much of what was in this pandemic response playbook. And they had the playbook. They didn't have to do the thinking part. They just had to do the doing part, and they didn't do it. They had a physical playbook with instructions, and they ignored all of it. And what we now, I mean, listen, there's always these questions of, you don't start assigning blame in the middle of stuff. But at the same time, if you think you need someone else leading the cause, you do have to assign blame. When this is all said and done, is anybody going to be held accountable? And what I mean by that is when the death toll stops and when we get beyond this, which hopefully will be as soon as humanly possible, are there going to be consequences, or is Trump going to get himself another 4 years? Because as we've talked about yesterday and earlier in the week, the approval rating for Trump is up. The portion of the population satisfied with his handling of this is up. And what I've really come to realize during this coronavirus pandemic is I really prefer my dystopias to be only in the fiction books that I'm reading and not in reality. I love dystopian science fiction, and yet I'm finding myself struggling to read any of it right now because it's all feeling just a little bit too real. Check this out. The first 500 people who see this video and go to davidpakman.com/skill will get a premium membership to Skillshare for 2 months completely free. Skillshare is the online learning community with thousands of classes on almost anything you can imagine, always taught by experts. They have classes on drawing, painting, photography, video editing, web design, running a small business, and much more. I recently took a very interesting class called Simple Productivity: How to Accomplish More with Less, and got a bunch of great personal productivity tips out of it. We should allow ourselves a little time every week to either get creative, keep your brain sharp, learn something new. It's great for mental health, and almost all the classes are under an hour, so it's very easy for someone who's busy to take advantage of it. With Skillshare, you can discover a new passion, explore something you didn't know you would enjoy, but there's also plenty of classes for people with experience, so you can just get better at something you're already good at. And again, the first 500 people who see this video and go to davidpakman.com/skill will get a completely free premium membership for 2 whole months, giving you access to every class Skillshare offers. Check it out. I put the link right underneath this video.